What's up, mamas? I'm Rebecca. You're watching the Reseller Mom Show. Thank you so much for joining me today for more Reseller Mom content to get more done, make more money, and stay sane while raising kids and reselling online. I am excited to bring you today's video, which is all about my inventory management system. So this is a system that I've created over the last 3 years that have really helped me wrap my arms around and keep tabs on all of the items that I have in a growing inventory. Sometimes it's been as high as over 2,000 items. Sometimes it's been as low as 1,200 items. Right now I'm sitting at about 1,500 items, and I think that's good for me for right now. I think about 1,000 to 1,200 items is actually my sweet spot, but it ebbs and flows. And so I wanted to share with you, in case this is an issue that you may face in the future or you may be facing now, where your inventory is growing and you're just having a hard time really managing it, revising it in a good way, knowing if you should relist items, knowing if you should remove items, all of the things that kind of go along with having an aging inventory. I'm tackling it here. So this is not me showing you my actual inventory system physically. That's going to be a separate video. I did one a while back, and I'm going to do an update since it's changed. So that's coming. And this is not going to be showing you my actual inventory spreadsheet. That's coming in a separate video as well, and really needs like an entire video to itself. So this is just the overall system and procedure that I'm following now and have been executing on for a few weeks, and thought I would share it with you. So I have eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari items. They're all the same on all three platforms for the most part. And this system is really to help me keep track of everything and help them sell faster by certain triggers. So let me just mention a couple of things, as I already did. My inventory is growing, and I needed a way to kind of really wrap my arms around it, feel like I could manage it well, know what was going on with all of it, and get it to sell more quickly. So I felt like I needed a system or a set of triggers, things that could help me automate keeping things moving. Do keep in mind that I work with a virtual assistant, so I have a role and she has a role. We each do our parts. If you are looking to possibly adapt this for yourself and you're a one mama show, that's fine too. Just do both roles. Or keep in mind certain things that you may want to pull from this, even if you don't adapt at all. That's fine too, of course. You do what works for you, but just do keep in mind there's two people kind of ping-ponging things back and forth with this system. So the first thing is I have an inventory spreadsheet and I have a column for remarks, and that's kind of like a notes column, but my virtual assistant named it remarks, whatever. That makes her happy, that's fine. So in there, I noticed that the notes were getting out of whack. She was putting some notes, I was putting some notes. Notes changed over time. Like sometimes I'd call something this, sometimes I'd call something that. It was just a little bit of a mess. So I was like, that's it, no more notes in there. It's only going to be reserved for these types of codes, and these codes are going to trigger an action. So we have remove, cross post, Halloween, and holiday. I'll start with Halloween and holiday just because they're maybe only unique to me. I don't know if you would use this, but I have Halloween costumes and I have holiday items, mostly ugly Christmas sweaters. I also like Santa boxer shorts. I love selling those. Anyway, so if something has been in the system for a while and I mark it as Halloween, that's going to kind of like preempt it or exempt it, I guess I should say exempt it from other triggers. So if an item gets too old and things are going to happen with it, but it's also marked as Halloween, then those things aren't going to happen with it because it's a Halloween item, because it's seasonal. And so I'm not going to have somebody like the virtual assistant or myself remove an item from inventory after a certain amount of time if it's a Halloween item, because I'll just let it sit till the next Halloween. Also, I will relist old Halloween items as it gets close to Halloween. So like in August, all of my Halloween costumes that had been sitting there, I told her anything that says Halloween, go relist it. And then I told her anything that's holiday, just recently in September, she's just relisting those. So it's just a code to kind of trigger an action. And in this case, it's to exempt it from another action or to trigger the relist when I tell her it's time. So I'm getting those two out of the way, just so you know, in case you have something like that. You may have another kind of seasonal item that you might follow a similar path with, but for me, it's holiday and Halloween. The other two main ones are remove and cross post. So there are some items very early on before I got Mercari going that aren't on Mercari. And so every once in a while, I will put Expost onto a record for an item that's only on Poshmark and eBay and write Expost in the remarks, and that will trigger my virtual assistant to go ahead and cross-post that item to Mercari and add it to that inventory as well. So it's not a lot, it's a lot less now, and maybe in the future, if I ever pull back from Mercari, I would need it more. But right now, that's something that you can keep in mind if you don't have all of your inventory posted to something and you want to review your items and say, okay, this I'm going to cross post, this one I'm not, and then you can put this note in to trigger the cross post. And again, it's triggering my virtual assistant to do it. This could be for yourself, whatever. Remove is the other big code that I use, and that's really to have an item removed from inventory completely. So sometimes I go through, because I get sick of looking at items, and I review all my items, and I'm like, that's it, I'm gonna remove like 50 items today. And I don't wanna spend the time actually doing it, so I put the code remove in the notes column, and then that will trigger my virtual assistant to end the eBay listing, remove it from Poshmark, remove it from Mercari, and then remove the item completely from the spreadsheet so that that record is no longer there. So those are the codes that I use. Again, I share that with you not because you would maybe exactly do it that way if you don't have a virtual assistant, but to give you the idea to standardize a notes area that can trigger you to do certain things, certain actions based on a code. So there's the point of that. Moving on. So the real main point of this video is to share with you what I'm doing in the item life cycle, the circle of life. So I'm really focusing on items taking 1 year to sell or less. Ideally, I would like to shorten that up over time, but right now I'm gonna go with a year. So as an item hits a year, goodbye. Unless there is any extenuating circumstances, like it's a whatever major high-end something that for whatever reason hasn't sold yet, or it was a seasonal that got listed on the wrong side and it's valuable and I wanna keep it. So there's probably a couple of parameters that would exempt an item from being removed at 1 year, but basically we're focusing on items being listed no longer than 1 year. So now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of it. So the first criteria or trigger that I have is 365 plus days to sell. So now that we've started and executed on this, we've already kind of gotten rid of the plus area. So there really isn't anything in the spreadsheet that should be listed over 365 days because we've gotten rid of all of those before. Now we're working our way backwards. And so as things turn over 365 days, that's triggering an automatic removal. And I put slash or dash VA because my virtual assistant is doing that. So all of this is prefaced on the fact that in the spreadsheet, I have an inventory spreadsheet, all of my items are listed there, and we list the date that it gets listed. That's a column. The column next to that is an age column, and that's how long it's been listed. So as of today, minus when it was listed. And that's a formula, and again, when I go over the spreadsheet in a new video, I'll share with you all of that. But you do need this information. You can't do it without it. So you have to have a column for when you've listed it and a column with a formula that says from today, how many days has it been since I listed it? Everything bends on that. So when that column that shows how many days it's been since it was listed turns 365 days, boom, that automatically triggers my virtual assistant to remove that item from inventory. Then she sends me a note that says these items have been removed. We've actually set this up for a weekly plan. So on Mondays, she goes in and reviews the inventory for anything over 365 days. They're actually color coded on the spreadsheet as well as it says 365 days. And so those will automatically be, visible to her and she can remove them. Again, taking them out of eBay, taking them out of Poshmark, taking them out of Mercari and removing the listing record from the spreadsheet, giving me the item numbers so that I can go to the inventory physically and pull the items out. Once that happens, I have different processes that I go through with that item, which will also be a separate video on how I clearance out items. And so once an item is removed from inventory, it's now available to be clearanced in other ways, and I'll share those with you in a separate video. I'm trying to stay on track. So That's the item is automatically removed at 365 days. That's done by my virtual assistant. Now the period right before that, so now we're looking at an age of 270 days old, which is 9 months, to 364 days, which is the day before its 1-year birthday with me. So in that period, so basically the last quarter of a year, I will go ahead and review those items for final price drops before removal. So basically it's saying all of these items have been listed anywhere from 9 months to almost a year. I'm gonna go in and review them, and maybe I'll try to make one last price cut to get it to sell, because once it hits 365 days, my virtual assistant's gonna remove it. So this is really the last stop for it to sell before it gets plucked out of inventory. So this is for me to go through. If I definitely want it to be removed, I may not do a final price drop on it, but I can at least review it based on the age of the item. Again, it's gonna show me that it's 270 to 364 days old in my spreadsheet, and I'll be able to just review those records and say, okay, this one, we'll let her get rid of that. This one, let me go ahead and price drop it, see if it sells. This one will price drop. This one will let it go. And so that's me kind of controlling what will get removed and what is going to get price dropped as it ages again. So that's my portion of it. Then the next period of time before that is 180 days to 270 days. And so that's 6 months to 9 months. So if it's listed 6 months to 9 months, this is an automatic trigger again. So my virtual assistant on, I forget, there's 3 days a week that she does relists, 3 days a week that she does price drops, we'll get to that in a minute, and 1 day a week that she does removals. So on Monday she does removals, I forget which days she does the other things. But so 3 days out of the week, she's going into the spreadsheet and looking for the items that are aged in that column at 180 days to 270 days. So anywhere in that range, if it's that many days old, she's automatically relisting it. We have a column for her to check that she's completed it. So at 6 months, that's when the item gets relisted. Again, it can happen anywhere, between that age, because if she doesn't get to them all that day or that week, so it fluctuates on how many she does, and I do pay her for that to relist it, just like I do pay her for when she lists something for the first time. So that's a fee to me, but it's nice to be able to say everything gets relisted at 6 months. So if it makes it to 6 months, it's going to get relisted. So that's a trigger for her. The next area is 121 days to 180 days. So this is 4 to 6 months. This is the period right before she's going to relist an item. That's when I'm going to go in and review for any final price drops, any removals before she relists. So basically, if you can notice the pattern, anytime I have her do an automatic function, I'm going through right before to review it before it gets to the automatic function with her. So before it gets removed, I look at it. Before it gets relisted, now I'm looking at it. And that way, it gives me a little bit of control within the trigger to say, okay, well, that one's kind of an exception, or, don't do it with that one. So I'm able to kind of go through and take out any outliers, make any special notes, do anything that is not the norm. But at least I'm not having to initiate the task for every single one every time. It's automatic with her. No matter what, she's going to do these things that I've outlined here. But before that, I'm just going to check it through and make sure that there's nothing that I want to take out of that sequence. Sorry, words again. So when it's 4 to 6 months old, that's when I'm going to review it. I'm going to do some final price drops or decide to take it out. Maybe there's a reason. Sometimes I buy things, didn't know there was a flaw, put it up with the flaw, and then later I'm like, you know what, they're never gonna buy it. That's kind of a stupid flaw to have even listed. Sometimes you just have a second thought where you're like, why did I buy this? Or this flaw is too big, I'm just not gonna go forward with it. Because again, when it gets to the point of 6 months, she's gonna relist it. I'm gonna be paying another price tag. I pay her $1 to relist it, basically, because she's relisting it on Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari. So it's getting wiped and then relisted on 3 platforms. So it's basically a new listing, other than the fact that the information is already there. But she's relisting it on all 3 platforms for $1. So before I invest that extra dollar, I want to make sure that this isn't something that I'm price dropping it so low that I'm not going to make back on that or whatever. So this is a nice catch-all period to review it. The next period before that is 61 days to 120 days. So that's 2 months to 4 months. And this is an automatic price edit by 10%. So this is something that she's going to go in, and once an item hits 61 days or falls in the 61 to 120 days, 3 days a week, she's reviewing the spreadsheet for these particular items. She's going to price drop it by 10% on Poshmark, on eBay, and on Mercari. On Poshmark, perhaps that might trigger something as far as a discount, or if it happens to coincide with a closet clear out. The only problem is that this hasn't ever really coincided with the closet clear out. That would be the best thing, but for right now I haven't figured that part out. On eBay, dropping it 10%, and then on Mercari, dropping it 10%. So hopefully that may initiate a sale at that point. So that's, and that I'm paying her part of her like monthly contract that I have with her monthly fee. I pay her a certain flat amount to do certain tasks throughout the month on an ongoing basis. And then there's some things that I pay her piecemeal for. So the relists, I'm paying her per listing. The price edits is rolled into our automatic contract. So again, if you're doing this, it doesn't matter any of those things, but you can still follow the timeline and say at 61 days, I'm going to drop those items 10%. At 121 days, I'm going to remove things before I decide to relist them at 6 months, et cetera, et cetera. So you can still follow all of this. It's just broken down between me and the VA right now, but you can totally do all of this. Anyway, so she's going to automatically do the price edits 3 days a week. And I think that's the most time consuming, is the price edits. And so it takes her a little bit more time. And so she works on that 3 days a week. So in a given week, she may not get to all the ones that are for that week. So it's kind of like a rolling thing. Next is 0 to 60 days. And so this is an area where I'm going in and making sure that the listing is as optimized as it can be. And the reason for this, and you may not need this period, you can, but you may not need this, is because I have my photographer create the form, or like fill out a form with all the item specifics. And then she takes pictures of the item, takes a picture of the form, and that goes to the virtual assistant. The virtual assistant lists everything. I have no part in it. So I don't keyword those items. I don't optimize those listings. I don't do anything for those listings. I buy it, I ship it. The 10 items per day that go up in my closet, that's given to the photographer to do, she's keywording, and then the virtual assistant is data entry and keywording, and I don't do anything for it. The only thing I do is price it, but I don't price it at the time that the listing's going up. I price it before. So the photographer will do the pictures. I'll go ahead and generate a list of prices. All of that goes to the VA, and she lists everything live. We used to do it with drafts, and I realized that I was such a bottleneck to the process that if I didn't get to look at the drafts, those listings didn't go up. And so I felt like I trusted both of them enough at this time not to make too many errors. They may not make the best listing, but they're not going to make outright errors. It happens sometimes, but enough to where those listings could go up without me bottlenecking it. And so in the 0 to 60 day phase, I'm going to go back through at my leisure when I can. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it happens one day and then it doesn't happen for 3 days. So it's less of a bottleneck because the listing's already up. And I'm just going back and adding finishing touches. Sometimes I make corrections, sometimes I don't. Sometimes you see when I have a what sold fast video, I may not have gotten a chance to revise that listing, and then I'm looking at it for the first time as I'm showing what sold, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Why is that keyword there? That doesn't make any sense. So sometimes I don't see what goes into a listing, but it goes up and things can sell regardless of me having my hands on it. And that's why I do it this way, because I'm not serving as my own bottleneck. Now, for the ones that I do go in and revise things, sometimes I'm adding a new keyword that I just found out about because I watched a haul video, or I did some research and I learned about a new keyword, or there was a phrase that I want to put in, or I realized that there's a typo, or the photo's not good and so I want to go grab the item and do a different photo. So it could be any of these. Sometimes the categories are, I'm like, it should actually be a tunic or whatever. So I make little revisions. And like I said, the listings can still go up, and that's why it's awesome. But it is nice to be able to have this period of time in this 0 to 60 days to where I feel like once 60 days passes, hopefully, as long as I got to that listing, I feel like it's as best as I could do. So it's as best as my photographer could do. It's as best as my VA could do. And now I'm the third pair of eyes on it with the best that I can do. And so that's a solid listing. And so at that point, if it hasn't sold, now working backwards, if it hasn't sold in 61 to 120 days, then it's a price issue, because there isn't anything else I could do to improve that listing other than drop the price at this point. Then I go back through at 121 days and I check it, see if I want to do any more price drops, see if I should take it out. If not, then it's going to be there again at 6 months. Perhaps if it still doesn't sell, it's going to get relisted. I mean, the whole goal is that these triggers are doing things to help it sell before it gets to the next category or the next section of age. So ideally, items should be selling in the first 0 to 60 days and not getting to the next part. But if it does, then it's going to get price dropped, and hopefully that's going to make it sell. That doesn't work, then I'm going to review it again and see if it needs another price drop. If that doesn't work, then it's going to get relisted. That doesn't work, it's going to get reviewed again, and then if that doesn't work, it's going to get removed at 365 days. So that's the life cycle. The other thing is, and why I did this very objectively with dates, kind of, ages of the days, is that I would be like, oh, but that could sell, or oh, the pictures on that aren't that bad. Like, I was getting in the middle of it with my 2 cents, and like sometimes my 2 cents needs to just stay in the change pocket, because you go in there and you make all these excuses because you don't want to be wrong. You don't want to say I spent $4.99 at Goodwill on that and it didn't sell in a year. You don't want to say that, but sometimes you just need to be like, that's it. So that's why I have my virtual assistant. I mean, I'm reviewing it first, but she's actually the one to remove it. Because if you've ever, the only thing that, and this is going to be way too much information, but when Gio was born, I breastfed. This is... maybe this will help you, the analogy. I breastfed Gio when he was born, but he was getting all gassy and stuff, and so they told me to lay off the breast milk and go to the formula. So we did, but I had a freezer full of breast milk because I was so intent on all this breast milk and pumping, and I got up every 2 hours and I pumped, and I had a freezer full of breast milk. And when it came time when he was old, I think I had it in there for like a year, and I'm like, I guess it's time, right? Like, it's time to get rid of this breast milk. I'm never going to give it to him now. And I didn't keep records on everything I ate and stuff. I couldn't donate it. And so I was like, what am I going to do with it? I couldn't do it. So I told my husband to get rid of it, because I couldn't bring myself to go into the freezer and dump it all in a garbage bag and throw it away after what I knew I went through to get it all. And it was awful. I tried a couple times and I couldn't do it. And I know, I'm so sorry if this is gross to anybody or if this is just too much information, but for those that maybe have gone through something like this, you could understand the gut-wrenching inside from having to get rid of this after you went through such an ordeal to produce it for so long. And that's how I feel about my items. I found you, I searched through a bin for you, I quality checked you, I did photos of you, or I gave it to my photographer to do photos of you. You've been with me for a year, you've hung out in my storage unit, you're part of my world, you're part of my life, and now we have to say goodbye because you didn't sell. And I don't want to admit that I made a bad buy or what. And so it's nice when my virtual assistant just yanks the cord and gets rid of them, and all she has to do is tell me what numbers. I go and I find them, I pretend not to look that much, and I just get rid of them. And again, I'll explain in that separate video how I clearance them out. And sorry for such a sidetrack, but that's how I feel. That's my honest truth. So anyway, whatever. I should say a prayer for all those items that are no longer in there. Anyway, that's the system, that's the process. I hope that it may not be exactly what you're looking for. It may not be exactly the way you're going to do it, but I do think that there's some value in this for everyone. You may not be like a crazy person like me that has set up all of these things, but to me, having a system is the best way, because I change my mind often, I get sidetracked often, and so having a system that I can stick to and that I can have my virtual assistant stick to has been really, really good. And I hope that some element of this will translate into something good for your business. So at this point, I would like to say, this is how you can help the Reseller Mom Show. You can like this video on your way out. You can comment below on what you think about this, or ask me a question. I'm always happy to do a follow-up video if people have questions. So leave a question. I answer all of my comments. I read them all and I answer them all. So leave your comments and questions, and then subscribe to the channel for more Reseller Mom content to get more done, make more money, and stay sane while raising kids and reselling online. Thanks so much, mamas. Have a great day. Bye.